Good evening, and thanks for joining tonight's TI Technology webinar hosted by Texas Instruments. For tonight, we're going to take a deeper look into the TI-84 plus CE graphing calculator and how it can work on the Chromebook notebook computer. My name is Mike Houston, and I'm the moderator for this event. I teach algebra and calculus near Pittsburgh, where I use TI technology to make tough-to-teach, tough-to-learn concepts accessible to all my students. Tonight we're joined by our two panelists, Dennis Wilson and Margot Menkes. For the last 24 years, Dennis has been teaching at Landmark Christian School in Fairborn, Georgia. He has taught every level of math offered at Landmark, everything from 5th grade all the way up to multivariable calculus 2. In 2012, Dennis presents annually at multiple conferences on technology in the math classroom. He has served as an AP reader for calculus for the past 5 years and formerly served as the president of Georgia Association of AP Math Teachers. Dennis, it's great to have you with us.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here. I appreciate it.
And Margot currently works for Texas Instruments in the product development section of TI, specifically focusing on the 84 plus classroom solutions. She enjoys working with TI software developers and teams of educators to bring you guys, the educators, your wish list for the graphing calculator in the classroom. Margot is an applied mathematician and enjoyed a fulfilling university teaching career, teaching math majors and pre-service elementary and secondary teachers across the United States. Margot, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here.
We're expecting a large crowd, so your audio is muted. Feel free to send any questions to Dennis or Margot using the Q&A window on the right side of your screen. We'll also be using the chat window to send general messages. As a reminder, the session is being recorded, and we'll provide a link to the event certificate of attendance at the conclusion of the webinar. We hope you don't have any audio issues tonight, but in the event that you do, go to the very top of the WebEx menu, find audio and video, and choose audio broadcast. All right, Dennis, I am giving you control. Feel free to share your screen. Dennis, just so you know, you're muted.
I'm working. Sorry, lost the mute button when I shared the screen. Okay. We good to go? Margot, you ready?
Ready. So thanks, everybody, for coming tonight, and thank you for everything you're managing to support your students, your school, and just know you are so appreciated. We have an interesting agenda tonight. Dennis will share with us the expected outcomes of the webinar, and I'll be talking about some these TI-84 plus CE apps that meet Chromebook. And I thank Dennis for that title. I think it's so cool that we say that the 84 meets the Chromebook. So one piece of software is the TI-84 plus CE app. In order to get the app, we ask that you go to education.ti.com/distance learning. You'll fill out a form, and you'll be in touch with your local ETC that can help you not only get the app, but in case your school does the IT deployment to Chromebooks, if your Chromebooks are school managed, they can help you with that. They can really set you up. It's really cool. You'll probably see also a link in the chat or Q&A for a direct link for that app as well. It is beta, and I'll talk a little bit later in the session. The TI Connect CE app, when connected to a TI-84 plus CE, so if you have the physical TI-84 plus CE, the TI Connect CE app for Chromebook, it's a concept app, and we give you the link to the education.ti.com page where you can get the direct link to the app store so that you could get the app that way. That's pretty cool if you've got the 84 with you and your students have the 84 with them with the cable. And so that's a segue into an exciting part of the agenda. Dennis has a marvelous asynchronous module activity integrating the calculator skills while exploring the mathematics. So he'll showcase the software through that. And then Mike will be back with webinar drawing and information on closing out the webinar. And I think we can now segue to the expected outcomes. Dennis?
So these are our expected outcomes. And as Margot just mentioned in the agenda, what we're going to try to do is to model these apps inside an asynchronous module. And our hope is that we'll introduce a little bit of math content and technology content to the student through these modules. And we want you to be able to see that both from a teacher side and from a student side. And so we're hoping that we'll demonstrate the features of the TI-84 plus CE app and the TI Connect CE app as connected to a TI-84 plus CE. We're going to examine, possible uses of how we can use these apps in our lessons for the virtual distance learner. And then we want to reflect on how we can integrate calculator skills with mathematical content in the asynchronous classroom, because it's very important, I believe, in being able to get calculator skills in the asynchronous setting so that when you're in person, you can engage with the students more one-to-one. So, Margot?
Okay, so we're going to talk a little just quickly about the app itself and its features. And so some of you may have seen some of this information if you dug into what this app is. So basically, it will be the CEOS 5.4. Your handheld calculator might be all the way up to a 5.6. No worries. A lot of those were maintenance releases, so 5.4 is fully featured. The familiar 5 preloaded image bars are included, so you could do mathematical modeling, putting an image bar on the graph area, and for the water fountain sitting there, nice parabola for modeling. This is a beta release, and so in the beta release, there are no apps loaded, and so you also cannot send or receive calculator files to and from the emulator. So your activities would need to be fashioned accordingly. Calculator memory is not retained on closing and opening the app. If needed, keep the app launched on your Chromebook. I do that on mine. I just close the lid and then minimize the app, and then when I bring it back up, it's in the same state. If your students do close it, they would have to set up an activity again by entering whatever the activity would bring. One tip, if you're new to the TI-84 plus CE, when it launches, it's going to be on this RAM cleared screen, and that's basically its reset state. And the best keys to know on the 84 is second quit. Quit is above mode on the keypad, and that second row top. One row down from the top row. And that second quit will bring you to the home screen and it's good to go. And then you can start doing calculations and we can move on. Another thing to point out about using the app with, while you watch Dennis model this, he will be modeling just some of the uses, is that the emulator window sizing. So you can put the image there shows the emulator off to the side like it would be to the side of the desk for your work. It's not in the way, it's a tool on the side. So you can size it that way. You can size it any other way in terms of the windows. The window snap, just like any window on Chrome OS. This one just happens to have the 84 Activity Central web page open, and that could possibly be a way to stage windows. You know that as you're teaching more and more remote, it's so important to be able to stage your windows and plan what you're going to minimize, what you're going to bring up, and actually help the students understand their environment as well and make suggestions. And next, pressing the emulator keys in Chrome OS. If you're familiar with Chromebooks, remember these slides will be posted, so you can always go back and see where the tips are. But if you're familiar with the Chrome OS, you know that shortcuts really do help you a lot, and it's a philosophy of Chromebook experience. And so a couple things. If you do have a touch screen, just touch the emulator keys and you're good to go. If you're using a mouse, just go ahead and click on the emulator keys. You're good to go. One thing we noticed about Chromebooks, and it's true of a lot of computers, is you might want to go into settings and device and into mouse and touchpad. And there you can change the speed and acceleration settings of how the arrow's moving, the pointer's moving. And you may find that you may even have to coach your students on that one too, because if they've got to control their computers it's your own personal touch. If they're allowed, because sometimes if they're school monitored, they may not be able to adjust anything, so be sensitive to that as well. The other thing that's really fun is this red circle. How did that happen? Well, if you look at settings, device accessibility, manage accessibility features, you'll be able to find in the Chrome OS the ability to put the circle on the pointer. And that's nice when you're presenting. It's probably good for the kids just to see where the pointer is on the key, circling the emulator key. And I also mentioned for touchpad, you can do this, the speed and acceleration is shown. And again, these slides will be posted, so you don't have to run off to your Chromebooks right now to try it, but we do invite you to do that. And next is one other thing you should know about the emulator. A couple things. Okay, keyboard shortcuts for the emulator. We are going to post a document that has an array of the keypad, and we'll give you the shortcut for each key if you choose to use that. Okay, you don't have to. You can just use the mouse. But for example, just like in SmartView, if you use SmartView, if you when I launch the math menu, well, you know that the alpha A key is on math. And so A is the mapping to the computer keyboard. You press A on the computer keyboard, math will pop up. When you get to the second functions, you're going to need to be into the Chrome shortcut mindset. And so second is search 6, and for Y equal would be search 1. And the stat plot would pop open. One thing I found very, very helpful as we entered the world of Chrome books is that the Chrome OS has a shortcut to see their shortcuts. So on the bottom of the screen, that Control-Alt /, it's good to know. There's a beautiful window that pops up for the Chrome OS, and it just reminds you of everything you need. Alt / is delete on the emulator key. That's a nice thing to know, which is a Chrome OS shortcut. And if we go to the next slide, we'll see one more feature of that is a nice to know about the emulator is that as your students are doing the activities, and you'll see this model tonight, if you need to do a screenshot, you want them to share their work, you want them to share whatever's on the calculator screen. Well, in terms of the emulator, remember this is the first software showing, this one will use the native Chrome OS snipping tool. And so we give you the keystrokes to that, a partial screenshot to get a marquee. You can do a marquee with your mouse on the screen is Control-Shift, and then that lovely key with the box and the vertical bars. That, if you notice the snip that's in the dock on the right of the emulator, you'll notice that it's not like a totally clean border because I just went over and I snipped the screen to get it over into the activity, presentation, whatever you're going to have the students do, whatever you're going to do. And with that said, those are the little features that we wanted to highlight. Again, these slides will be posted so that you can go back and practice whatever you need and glean whatever you need out of this. And with this, we're going to turn it over to Dennis for this fantastic activity.
Thanks, Margot. And so, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things we're going to do is try to let you experience using the app in a lesson setting as a student, but you're going to see this from both the teacher side and the student side. And so in order to do that, we're going to, we've created a Google Classroom lesson, and this could easily been done if you're a OneNote user or perhaps you have some other learning software that you're using, but we're going to use Google Classroom to kind of show the ideas of how we can integrate the technology of the calculator and the mathematical content. So I've already got a sample class set up, and so I'm going to go and do my classwork, and right now I'm on my PC and I'm acting as the teacher, and I'm going to click create, and I'm going to create an assignment for my student, and I'm just going to call this assignment vertical translations, okay? And so the idea here is to have a very short introductory module that's going to give the student the necessary calculator skills they need, but also a little bit of an introduction to the mathematics. And then I'm going to click Add and Google Drive. And what I'm going to do is insert a Google slide presentation and click right here where it says My Drive. And so we're going to be working on a Google slide presentation that I've prepared in advance, but these will be available for you after the webinar if you're interested in them. So I'm just going to add this. And what this Google slide presentation does is it acts kind of as a vehicle for me to distribute knowledge to the student, but also for me to collect the student's work right there in the presentation. And what's nice about it, there's no paper, there's no exchange of paper, which I'm a big fan of because I'm a bit messy. But I'm going to choose, before I assign this, to make a copy for each student. So each student is going to get their own copy of this slide presentation that they can edit. And then I'll just click Assign. So my job first was to create this slideshow, and now I'm assigning it to my student, and I'm just waiting for Google to assign it. And while it does, I'll pull up the Chromebook. And so this is my Chromebook. And because of the webinar, and we didn't want to switch between screens, all I'm doing is mirroring my Chromebook into my PC. So here's a Google Classroom that my tech department at my school was nice enough to set up. And you can see Margo spoke earlier about changing the accessibility features in the Chromebook. And I really like, especially when you're recording what you're doing on the Chromebook, making that pointer, that mouse cursor bigger, and then circling it in so they can see it. So I'm going to click, I'm a student in here, and I'm going to click in the TI-84, and we can see that I've posted a new assignment ready for the student called Vertical Translation. So the student's going to click it, and right over here is the work that they're going to do. So I'm going to click to open, and here is our Google slide presentation for the student to work in. Okay, and in this slide presentation, all the student's going to do is stay in this edit mode. They're not going to present, but they're going to move page by page, and it's going to give them instructions. And so we'll start right here on this first page where it says instructions. And what we're trying to do is give students the ability to learn and have a place where they can keep coming back to learn. And so this first page is just giving students instructions on how to snip a piece of the emulator screen and paste it, and kind of how this assignment will work for them. Where are they going to insert responses? How are they going to use the calculator? And so what I've done is I've created this YouTube video, and the student can click on the YouTube video, and and right there, it is not clicking. It clicked this morning. Hold on, let me click off of it and then try. Okay, so you can see they can pull up the YouTube video, and they can make it full screen if they want, and they can even put it in another tab, okay? But all this video is trying to do, what we're wanting to do is to teach the students. In my classroom, I have certain difficulties in teaching technology. One of them is I'm constantly repeating keystrokes. I say, push this button, and there's a student that didn't hear it. Or students are constantly pushing the wrong button and having the wrong thing entered in their calculator. And so by creating this YouTube video, students can work at their own pace and kind of watch what's going on. And so these YouTube videos are unlisted, but this slide presentation will be available to you, and you can get to them from there. So instead of going through this is a skill. The snipping skill is we're going to use it quite a bit. So what I want to go is to the next page, and what they have here is just setting up their calculator for the activity. And so I'm presenting students with two options. They can download written instructions. So if I click the written instructions here, it gives me an opportunity, and I can open up a PDF where they can go through step by step, and I've got the keystrokes that they need, both if they were to touch the emulator buttons or if they were to use the keyboard on the Chromebook. And then I've got the screenshots. And what I did actually was made this with TI Smart View in my PC and then put it as a PDF for them to get to. The other thing they can do is to watch this video. And I think the video streaming will be a little different, but I want you to kind of see how easy it would be for the student to follow the video while using the app. So I'm going to launch the app. Okay, so here's the TI-84 CE app, and Margot mentioned a bit about staging windows. And so I've already got the Chrome app over here where I want it. And I'm just going to click to minimize this so that I can see my slide presentation and I can see the app at the same time. And so if a student wants, they can come over to the video, and then I'm going to click the YouTube button. And so now the student is in YouTube watching the video, and they can put it in theater mode. Okay, let me put that in theater mode. So they can watch that, and I'm giving instructions in the video for what they need to do here. Okay? And so what we're going to do together is we're going to do what those instructions would say in the video. Instead of watching the video, we're just going to do it here live. Okay, so I'm going to, sorry, catching up on my notes. I'm going to set up, the first thing I'm going to do is set up a window. And as Margot said, when we open the app for the first time, it's in this RAM cleared state. So this is the state that the calculator is always in. And if I push the graph screen, you can see that I've got that standard zoom window from -10 to 10 in Y, -10 to 10 in X. And this really isn't, if we're going to do translations, this isn't the screen I really want to be in. So the first thing I'm going to do is have my students set up their window. So we're going to just press zoom 4, okay? And I'll get the zoom decimal window, which I prefer. Then I'm going to press second zoom for format. And I'm going to put on the grid line. Okay, so now I've got a window. I've got my axes where I'm not quite -10 to 10. I'm like -6 something to 6 something. But what makes it nice is that they see these grid points really well. And I think that's important in teaching translation as you try to get students to see what each transformation is doing. Okay? So I don't know about what functions you like to use for teaching transformation, but I've made a choice here, and I'll show it in the next slide in my assignment. And you can see right here, f of x is the quantity x squared minus 4x divided by 4. And what I'm wanting students to do is I'm wanting to get a graph that fills a lot of my screen but hits the grid points. So what am I going to do to enter the graph? Well, if the student doesn't have the skills yet, they can watch that video and follow it. I'm going to press y equals, and I'm going to enter our function in for y1. And so the first thing I'm going to do is to try to get a horizontal fraction bar. And there's a couple of ways to do it. I think introducing the students at first using the alpha y equals for F1 to get this number 1 choice, numerator over denominator, is a good way. It's important that students learn to use this nice math print because it saves screen and it makes sure that they're entering the mathematics the way in the way that it's supposed to be. Margot, what's the other way that I can use to enter in this fraction bar?
So not printed on the keypad as of yet. If you press alpha xt theta n, you'll notice that there's really no alpha printed there, but it's sort of the magic place now for the fraction templates.
Thanks, Margot. You guys see that. Yeah, go ahead, Margot.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, we press alpha and xt theta n. Margot?
Yes.
Okay.
And the fraction template appeared.
Yes. So now I'm going to put in x squared minus 4x, and then I'm going to press to the right as that arrow is indicating, which takes me to the denominator, and I'll put in 4. So now I'm ready to graph, and so that first video just told the students how to graph this function and make sure that they have this function so that we can do all the mathematical activities and they're in the same place. You know, I can't walk around a virtual classroom and go student to student and make sure that they're seeing on their calculators what I want them to see. And so I'm trying to make sure that they're in the right place with that. And then once they are, I'm asking them to paste this screenshot here. So they're going to let me see what's on their calculator. And so as Margot mentioned before, there's a nice Chromebook shortcut for taking a screenshot of a section of a screen. And so I'm going to just press Control-Shift, and it's that Show All Windows button that's up at the top of the keyboard just above 6. And it grays out my screen, and I just move to one corner, and I drag and select to the other corner. And Chrome tells me, hey, I copied that, I captured that. I'll click Copy to Keyboard, and then I'm just going to move into my parent function. I'm going to move into the Slide with Parent function. I'm going to press Control-V, and it puts my picture there. And so what I want you to see is it says Paste Screenshot here, and it's in a gray box. And so in the introduction, I told students they see a gray box, then I'm expecting a student response. So they know exactly where they should be doing something, and so they can go through and find those gray boxes and make sure that they've done everything they should. And so it's easy as that in terms of either giving step-by-step instructions written or following a video recording of those being entered. On the next page, I'm wanting them to learn the skill of evaluating functions. And I think this is one of the most valuable skills students can have in using the calculator, especially I teach calculus, and I remember when I was in calculus in the 80s and we didn't have graphing calculators and there were so many keystrokes just to evaluate a function once, and we had to do it repetitively, and you got lost in keystrokes and didn't learn the math. And so this is an important skill that students need to have. And then also, students need to be able to use the function notation of the TI-84 Plus when they're studying these transformations. So the video would just take them through first going to the home screen. And so, as Margot said earlier, second mode to quit and go home, that's one of the most important keystrokes to know on the 84. So second mode, it quit and took us home. And now I want to evaluate our function y1 at different values. And so in this table, I have the different values that I want them to enter. So I'm going to press alpha trace for the F4 menu, and that pulls up all my function variables. So alpha trace pulled up all my function variables, and I'm going to press 1 for y1. I'm going to open a set of parentheses and input -2 and close the parentheses. And so now I've got the value of 3. And so one other thing what we're hoping to do is to train the students in button pushing, but at the same time collect important information that they'll need for their problem. So we're building a table of values of functions, and we just found that that value is 3. And so, whoops, got to type, I'm sorry, typed on the PC instead of the Chromebook. So there's 3. And then I come back to my app. Let me zoom my app down a little bit more. Okay. And I'm going to reinforce alpha trace to get that menu. Choose Y1. This time I'll evaluate it at 0. Close my parentheses and press enter. So now I've got the value of 0 in my table. And I'll even make sure that students know that they can go up and grab an entry, hit enter, and then edit that value so that they can evaluate it where they want. And so what we're wanting is the students to collect this initial information about the table of functions. I think it's very important when teaching transformations that we talk about it numerically as well as graphically. And so there's the question there, is there a reason why I wouldn't use the second graph to get to the entire table? And I'm going to do that in a second. But I want students to first learn to evaluate the function y1 using this notation. And also, like, the table's kind of the quick way. And I want my students to appreciate the quick way by taking the long road. You don't appreciate shortcuts until you get the long road. And so I'm kind of just trying to teach this skill here. And then in the very next slide, we're going to use the table. So when we go to use the table, we're going to go to the calculator, and we're going to press second graph for the table. And you can see this table comes up with the values starting at 0, and they increment up by 1. Now, with these values that I have on the table, it kind of fits what I had, except it's got these odd values in here. And I didn't want the odd values showing because I didn't want them to think about these fractional values, these non-integer values. So I need to set up the table in the way I want. So I'm going to tell the student to press second table set, and I'm going to start that table at -2, and then I'm going to go up by 2. And when I press enter, well, I press enter, it goes to the next one, but when I press second table this time, now it's showing me what's in that table. And what I want them to do here is I want them to paste the screenshot here. And there's 2 reasons for this. One, it's reinforcing to me that they're practicing this skill. But 2, well, actually 3 reasons. And 2, this is going to give them a place to look at the information that they'll need later. And then the third thing, like I said, I want to make sure that they've done things right. And so in the video, I'm wanting them to notice when I move my cursor up to that Y1, down in the window, it tells me what Y1 is equal to. So I'm going to have them capture this screen. And again, Shift, Control, Show All Windows. And I can capture that screen, copy it to the clipboard, and then paste it right into my slide presentation. And so now the students, when they want those values later in the lesson, they have them. So at this point, our hope is that the students have gone through this. They haven't talked about any math, but what I've tried to do is to get all the calculator skills under their belt so that now when I introduce the math, they'll be ready to go forward with the calculator. Okay, and so at that point, it would be up to you how you might choose to give some instruction about transforming graphs. Perhaps you are creating videos and posting them on YouTube. Perhaps you are creating, you're using clips from a textbook. Whatever it is that you're using for instruction, you could then embed in some way right here in your Google slide. And so students read what they're about to do with the math, and then they can come forward to the next page. So one of the things I always try to tell my students is before you reach for the calculator, I want you to think about the math. Because so many times the student will do something on the calculator, and if they haven't thought about it, they won't know if what the calculator is telling them is correct. And so when I teach transformations, especially translations, both vertical and horizontal, I'm wanting students to think about it numerically before we start looking at the graph. Now, earlier, we had the values 3, 0, -1, 0, and 3. And I'm asking them just to take the values in that column and add 3. And notice, I'm not using that Y1 notation the calculator used here. I'm using the mathematical notation for that function because I want the student to be like thinking math here. I don't want them thinking, okay, what is the calculator giving me? I want them to go ahead and think mathematically about that these values should be 6, 3, 2, 3, and 6. And so the students are filling in this table, and then I'm asking them, you know, what do we think the graph of that is going to do? Well, if we look at the table of values, all the x coordinates are going to be the same, but all the values, y values, will be 3 higher. So in our mind, we might be thinking that the graph's going to move up. Students might be thinking something else, but now we have the opportunity to check with the calculator if it meets our expectations. And so we have here a screen of the y equals, and it's telling them, go ahead and y2 and enter in that transformation function. So when we go to y equals, hopefully they've gone to y2, and they know how to pull up that y1 value because we've practiced it in that previous slide. But if they don't, they have that luxury of just like moving back to the slide, watching a little bit of that video again, and refamiliarizing themselves. And so they'll press alpha trace, y1 of x, close the parentheses, and then add the 3. And so when they press graph, they see that the graph has been moved up 3. And we're looking for a screenshot, so I'm just going to press Control-Shift, Show All Windows, and I'll take that screenshot once more, copy it to the clipboard, and then paste this in to my screen. One of the things I would recommend doing, like I cut these really nicely because we were doing a webinar, but I like to leave a little bit of edge there, especially if I'm having a student paste a screenshot to show that they've done what I want to do. Sometimes I just say, hey, go ahead and paste a screenshot that looks exactly like mine so that I know you're on the right page. And if I cut it up just a little bit different, I don't have that wise guy that's just going to grab that, copy it, and put it in that same place, because there's no way they're going to copy exactly the way I cut it. Okay, so we have these gray boxes, and all we've done so far is entered some values for tables, and we've taken some screenshots of graphs. Okay, on the next page, we have some questions where we ask them to put it in words. So multiple representations to me as a calculus teacher is very important, and I'm always telling my students we want to gnaw on the function. And so gnawing means G-N-A-W, graphically and numerically and algebraically. We've seen all those, but I need the students to be able to first put it into words. And so they can type their response right here in this box. And once they've typed that response, and I'm not going to take the time to type the response, then I ask them another question. We added 3, and they said that it moved the graph up. What effect do we think that subtracting 2 would do? And so it would take them through that same operation of doing the math mentally before they reach for the calculator and see what happens. And so they'll fill in the table, and then before I tell them, hey, before you graph it in the calculator, give them a chance at multiple choice. I think one of the difficulties that students have with mathematics at a distance that's very hard is, like, how do they get this graph to you? How do they get these equations? And by putting this calculator here, they can construct these images and even these equations using the math print, and then just capture the screen and drop it right in here, and we get that. But it also gives me a great opportunity to create as many graphs as I want and create a multiple choice question right in there. And then they would just put their choice in that gray response box that they're expecting. So one thing I want to show before we just kind of finish the intro of this assignment is I want to talk about why I think showing the numbers in the table are important. So when you do translations, do you always start with vertical or do you start with horizontal? Is there any response in the chat window of what you might normally start with? Vertical, horizontal, how would you go? Okay, I'm seeing vertical. I see some saying horizontal. I like to start with vertical because it meets their intuition. You add, it goes up. You subtract, it kind of goes down. And then students have difficulty that when I go into this box and add 2, so I'm adding 2 to the input, okay, they understand we're changing the x values. It's going to be horizontal, but it kind of goes counterintuitive. But when they see it on the table, if I press second table now, so we see these values, 3, 0, -1. And over here in Y2, what do we notice? Hopefully, we notice in Y2 that all the values are happening earlier. They're happening 2 before they happen in Y1. Everything's been shifted earlier, even though I added. And so they get that idea that I added to the x, so I get to the value that much sooner. And so numerically, I'm trying to teach them why that that counterintuitive shift of adding actually moved it to the left instead of moving it to the right. So back in the lesson, I'm hoping that the student was able to fill in this table and to answer the graph without their calculator. And then I'm going to ask them, hey, what I'd like you to do now is to go and check your answers with the calculator. Paste your table here, paste your graph here, and make sure that those answers correspond. And like I said, this is kind of an intro lesson. I want them just to pick up a little bit of a taste so that they know what to do with the calculator and have an idea of what this vertical translation is. And then they can get a more complete assignment where I'm not having to teach the skills at the same time. But once the student's done, I've got a page that tells them what they need to do. So first thing, they need to make sure that it's Save to Drive icon showing. Can you see this icon up here? Has a cloud and a check mark. Okay. You know, during the original shutdown, we had lots of thunderstorms in Georgia coming through in April, and we were frequently losing power. Okay. So if I lost my internet connection, this isn't going to save automatically. I want to make sure that this is saving. And once it does, it says, hey, you can return to the Google Classroom and click the blue button, Turn In. So this is automatically saved for me. I can go ahead and click Close to that presentation. I'm going to go to Vertical Translations and click Turn In. And it says, hey, you're going to turn this in? And I do. So now I'm going to go back to teacher mode on my PC. Here's my teacher, and I'm going to go to this assignment that I've created, and it says, hey, there's a student that's turned it in. So if I view the assignment as a teacher, there's my test student, and when I click on it, there's his work. Now I have the opportunity to grade it. And what's nice here is I can put the grade in, I can put comments there, but what I like even more about Google Slides is I can come in and put text in here in some other color that leave my responses based on what they did. So if they have the wrong graph here, I say, hey, this is the wrong graph. Perhaps you should go back and watch this video on slide such and such, and I can then, when I'm done, return it to the student, and they can get my responses. And so it's really nice, like I said, a vehicle. I distribute the material, and then I can also collect it, and then I can also distribute my assessment. So that's kind of a run-through of just the TI-84 plus CE app. So what we're going to do now is we're going to transition just a bit so we can talk about the Connect app.
So Dennis, thank you for that. That was wonderful. There was one question early on, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but it was about how are you mirroring your Chromebook on your PC?
Okay, so I use a program called Mirroring 360. I'll put it in the chat window, and it's by a company called Splashtop. And the app on the Chromebook is free, so all the students can load it on as a Chrome extension. And then I paid, I think, $9 so that it's on my PC. So all these students who are on the same Wi-Fi, I can actually have them mirror right into my PC. So when I'm in person, I can also pull up their Chromebook as well. And so what I really like, I created those videos on YouTube just by mirroring on my PC and then using my PC recording software. And like when I start, I want them to see that app, but then I probably would transition more into using the Smart View emulator on my PC, just out of ease of not having so many softwares running. But I think that they work well together.
Great, thank you so much. And we're seeing in chat that people have been using it as well. And I think that there's probably many solutions here, but it's great to hear the success story there. There was one of the things from the agenda slide that I forgot to say, but someone mentioned it in chat, and I went, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to say that. The 84 emulator that we just saw, it's free until July 2021, but I will share with you to keep your ears open later in the year for more interesting news, more details about what's going to happen after July 2021 with the emulator. And now we segue into another scenario that you might be able to use in your class, well, in your remote class, if your students do have their 84 plus CE at home with them, with the cable, the calculator to computer cable. And so remember that these slide decks will be posted. And so what happens with TI Connect CE, if you have used it on PC or Mac, there are some of the features that are important to a remote classroom that are in the app for Chrome OS. And so if you do have this situation, you can actually send and receive calculator files. Dennis is going to talk about how to share a graphical database. That's a GDB file that helps set up an activity without a lot of extra typing of the activity into the calculator. You can send programs and lists as well. If any of you are doing the 10-minute of code activities that are on education.ti.com, you can have your kids get those programs or send them the programs, or they can write programs and send them to you and showcase what they've been doing. There's also the automatic screen capture, and so you wouldn't have to use a snipping tool in the Chrome OS. You could just get the screen capture right from the calculator itself, and you can paste it into your worksheet, reports, presentation. And then from TI Connect, since it's running on the Chrome OS, you could save the student, well, your calculator files, the student's calculator files, the actual physical calculator files, and screen captures locally or to your Google Drive, and then share. And so think about the modeling of being able to get screen captures, have a lot of kids put a screen capture up, and then you can actually display them for a discussion. It's a little bit like if you've ever used our Navigator system for Inspire or the old Navigator system that we had for 84. It gives you a nice way to display multiple screens and have the discussion of what the students have been doing in activity. So we give you a link to the education.ti.com site that has the link to the App Store, and I believe that somebody's probably going to post the direct link to the App Store so that you don't have to even go through education.ti.com. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dennis to show us the rest of this exciting activity.
So I just want to say that I think if your students have the handheld at home, that it's to their advantage to use the handheld. It's such a powerful tool, and we can see Margot mentioned some of the features that it carries that the app doesn't. But like students using the handheld and being able to understand how it works and how they can use it to solve problems. It's such a powerful tool beyond just the graphing calculator. When students become comfortable with it and all of its features, it really can help them explore mathematics. You know, some of the greatest mathematics that I ever learned was not because I was in a class, but because I had a calculator that allowed me to explore. And so I think the handheld does a great job with that. And so what I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to create another assignment in my Google Classroom. Let me find it. So I'm going to click return there, return here. And real quick, I'm just going to, so that my student on my Chromebook can get to it, I am going to, sorry, my window is blocking where I want to go. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my classwork, and I'm just going to create another assignment. And I'm doing this quick, and it'll be recorded if but those of you who are familiar with Google Classroom can understand how it works. I'm just going to call this TI Connect. I'm going to add a Google Drive file again. It's just another Google slide presentation, and it's just been adapted, slide adaptation, to make use of Connect instead of the app. So I'm going to do that and assign, and so it's being assigned to my student now. So let's go see what my student sees on their Chromebook. And on their Chromebook, we have, let me click classwork and see if it shows up. Stream. Oh, did I not do something right? Okay. Oh, here it goes. Okay, just a little delay. So there's my TI Connect, and I'm going to go ahead and start working on it. And the big difference is I'm not going to instruct the student how to set up the calculator. I'm going to send them a file using TI Connect so that they can set up the calculator. So right here on this page, the students are given instructions in a video of how to download this GDB file. That's what we're going to do, and then put it on the calculator. So first thing, I'm just going to click this link, download the graphical database file. And so a graphical database file is storing the y equals functions. It's storing my window settings, my window format. Everything we set up previously with keystrokes, I set that up for them. It opens up a new tab and gives me the option to download. I'm just going to click download, and it's complete. Okay? So I'm going to minimize this, well, not minimize this Chromebook. I'm going to make my Chromebook just a little bit smaller in the screen you're seeing so that we can also look at my calculator. Let me turn on my calculator. There's my calculator. I've got it in that RAM cleared state. I just cleared all the RAM. And what I'm going to do is communicate with this calculator that you're seeing here. I'm going to communicate it with my Chromebook. So I'm going to go and open the TI Connect app. And there's the app. You can see it says connect a graphing calculator using a USB cable. So I've just got the charging cable, the USB in plugged into my computer. I'm going to plug the charging in to the side of my calculator. And I get TI Connect. It changes. It says, hey, there's a calculator connected. There it is. I'm just going to click refresh content. And we see everything that's on this calculator. Okay? Notice right here between F and H, there is no G there. But I'm going to come over here and click the button that shows a PC with an arrow, and all it says is add content from my computer. So I'm going to click add content. And you can see there's a GDB file right there. I'm just going to click on it and open. And it'll ask some questions. And mainly for your students doing this, all they have to do is click send. If they wanted to name it some other number on their calculator, they could. They're just going to click send. And if I look over here now, notice between F and H, I now have GDB file. Okay? So watching now over on my calculator, I'm going to load that in my calculator. Before I do, I just want to show you, I got no y equals, and my graph is that standard zoom standard window. Okay, there's nothing up my sleeve, so to speak. I'm going to press second program to get the draw menu, second program for the draw menu, move over right to the store menu, and I'm going to go down to 4 to recall the graphical database, and we downloaded GDB1 to it, so I'm going to say number 1, and it says done. Now notice, I press y equals, there's the function, I press graph, and it graphs that function. So now the students, just by downloading that file, are able to get into this state. And what's nice about this is I could send them a more complicated file that I might be hesitant to make the student type through when they're first learning. Or I can even set up the window in a way that I hit grid points differently. I choose what I want by sending them this graphical database file. So now I've got that file on my calculator. The students do stuff with it, and I want them to put that screen that's on their calculator into their assignment. Notice on your Connect app, over here it says press to capture calculator screen. I press that button, and my calculator screen is captured there. Okay, let me change to that y equals, let me put the table on, second table. It's not the one we had earlier, but I've got that table. And now notice that capture button isn't in this screen because I have a screen here. But if I go up to that camera button right here, that's now my capture button. I click it, and there's my table. And so I can click on one of these screen captures. I got the copy button. I'll click copy, and then I'll go back to my assignment. Go back to my assignment, which is here. And I can paste it where I'm supposed to paste it using Control-V. It's being slow. Well, sorry. Back to that. Oh, for some reason, oh, you know what? When I created the assignment, I did it so fast that I didn't make a copy for everyone. So this is a good teaching moment. You got to make a copy for everyone if you want your student to be able to paste their responses into this. So if, just to show you that it's on the keyboard, well, I don't know if a good way to do that, but because I didn't set it up for every student to have their own copy, it's a read-only file. I guess, yeah. So I would have to I'd have to resend that assignment. A little haste there, I'm sorry. But what's nice about using the handheld, one, the students using the handheld the way they would normally do it, the way that they would do it on a standardized test, whether it's an AP exam or SAT or ACT, they're getting familiar with using that calculator as a tool to find answers, but also learning to use it as an exploration tool. And then it opens up my options where the app was kind of limited. Students don't have to worry about the RAM getting cleared. Students can use some of the apps that are on there. So like if you're used to teaching transformations using the transformation app on the TI-84, you can do that using the Connect app. And like we saw earlier, GDB files, that's my favorite feature, being able to send files to students, and I don't have to tell them, okay, let's put this function in, let's set the window up. I just send them that file, and we're ready to explore the math I want them to explore and not press keystrokes. So that's kind of how it's different with the TI Connect app. Let me minimize this. And so Margot and I are now going to share some other suggested resources that you can use using the apps that we've seen. I like the TI, I don't know if you use TI Activity Central a lot, but one of the great things is those documents, the lessons are already prepared, and the documents are in Word format as well. You can take those lessons that they have, and you can put them in a Google slide presentation, and, you know, the keystrokes are there. You can take something that somebody's already done and make a nice quick lesson using Google Classroom or even Microsoft OneNote if you want. Margot, do you have any thoughts there? I'm sorry.
We didn't segue. No, that's okay.
No,
we didn't segue.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so yeah, the 84 Activity Central is great, as Dennis said. Dennis, did you mention the e-guides?
No, I was going to let you want to mention the e-guide?
I'll mention the e-guides because I'm near and dear to this guy. So the e-guides, our team works really, really hard to provide help files, and we do have guidebooks. And I will tell you that if you need to dig deeper and deeper into the CE features, I'll personally recommend that you go find the 84C, so the TI-84 Plus C Silver Edition. That was the generation before the CE. We have a massive full guidebook that's really, really great. But for the 95% of the general questions that you probably have, the e-guides for the 84 CE, we got a snip down here of what it looks like. So you got using a keyboard, setting up the calculator modes, evaluating expressions, working with graphs, matrices, ProbStat, variables, and so on. You'll see in another column that there's the TI Connect help file, the SmartView help file, information on the charging station. These two programming guides, the program guide and reference guide for TI Basic, really, really helps if you go all over and do our 10 minutes of code for TI Basic. Great intro into programming and STEM. And then the calculator apps. There's a little bit of a getting started with actually a lot of information for each of the apps that come loaded on the CE. I mentioned coding and STEM are amazing activities, cool things that you can do with your students as kind of the bell ringers, or actually go for it and really integrate it into your math class and have them actually code some algorithms using TI Basic. And so the TI codes, this is a link, and it's basically like 10 minutes of codes. And it really breaks down, even if you don't know TI Basic, even just walk through it, and you'll be able to guide your students through it. I mean, you're all math teachers. It's all if-then statements. It's cool. So
yeah, can I just say, Margot, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I would just say, like, what I love about 10 minutes of code is it's set up like a slideshow. You press next, it takes you to the next step. You press next, it takes you to the next step. And so one of the things you can do is adapt what's on TI code using like screen capture, make that assignment your own, and then you can collect screenshots from your student either through the TI Connect app or the TI-84 CE app. You can collect to make sure that they're actually doing the coding, that they're not just like checking boxes and saying, oh, yeah, I did that. But also then you can then extend the assignment in some ways that you might want to. And so I think that's great. And then like the STEM side of it, I would just say, I mean, we all hope to be in person again someday. And when we get those innovators and those rovers in our hands, we want the transition to be seamless. We don't want to have to like learn that technology again. And so there's some great opportunities to do that.
I agree, Dennis. And the last bullet there is TI Education YouTube videos up the wazoo, little snip on the bottom saying analyzing functions using graphical information video, and many videos with amazing quality. And you saw the ones Dennis created. I'm looking at time. We got to give it back to Mike. I will tell you that there's some questions in the chat about different things people use. In terms of, I saw Bloxy, I saw some people saying that they use proprietary, there's a mix of PC Chromebook. If you go to education.ti.com/distance learning, go to the 84 Chrome emulator, click on it. You're going to see a form to contact TI. They're going to be able to help you with all those configs, okay? So we really hope that we can provide some kind of solution or some kind of answer, but please contact us for that information as well. We can't cover everything here, but we so appreciate you. Back to Mike.
Thanks so much, Margot and Dennis. We are going to wrap things up tonight. To get a certificate of attendance, go ahead and click that link that just appeared in the chat window. Also listed as a link for the documents that Dennis and Margot put together for tonight. And if you're watching this on demand, go ahead and copy that link into your favorite browser to receive your certificate. Big thanks to Dennis and Margot for all the information and the activities. For the Chromebook. This is definitely timely and really appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, everybody.
Yep, thanks, everyone, for joining us tonight. We hope to see you back online next week. Have a great night and stay safe.